Three,
two,
two, one.
monkey bars. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Thicc and the Butter podcast. My name is Alex.
My name is Jesse.
Okay.
Butter.
And welcome to another review for a film. And this film, we're going to be reviewing, I don't even want to say the title. Scream 2022.
Wait, it's Scream 5.
It's fucking Scream 5.
It's
Scream...
Stab 8. Come on, it's Stab 8.
It's Scream 5. Why the fuck? Okay, just a quick. Why the fuck did they? I mean, I guess we'll get into it. I guess this kind of works a little better because they are playing with. There is a joke about that in this movie, so
Yeah.
like I get it. But it's still stupid.
I think they should have called it Screams. I think they should have called it Screams.
Yeah. Oh shit. Or Scream : what's your favorite scary movie?
Yeah, like add like a subtitle or something. I mean, it's fine.
So silly.
It's so confusing and dumb and just hard to communicate now, and also not that creative. Is it worth that one joke? Or like the idea of being like a requel or something like that. It's not. I don't think it's worth it. Just name something.
Name the title different. But yeah, so this is Scream 5. And we're gonna review Scream 5. And I think talk about our expectations of like what we were like going into this, I did not really want to see this movie. Probably because how they do it in this movie, the requel, the reboot sequel thing is kind of, I wouldn't say that I'm getting annoyed by it. It's just a thing. It's just a cycle that's happening right now in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it's probably better than a remake. I'm glad that these reboot sequels exist rather than remakes because I think they have better intentions.
Yeah, and at least it's new stuff based on old stuff.
And I think Hollywood has just found this good formula, probably starting with The Force Awakens, to be honest.
Good point. I actually never made that connection. That's a good point.
Actually, this movie made me think about it because there's a great joke where the character goes, "They're even doing it with Star Wars."
Oh, right.
And just this year we've had Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is which I've not seen yet, which I've heard good things about. Is that it's a requel, it's a reboot sequel thing.
Yeah.
So they are rampant. And it is better. I'd rather have that than the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, or the fucking the horror remake like Poltergeist remake, which is a piece of fucking garbage.
Yeah.
I can name tons of them.
All of them suck. Is there
most of them suck?
Is there a good remake?
Horror remake? I think the Texas Chainsaw remake is okay.
I heard that was
honest with you.
I think you've said that before.
The remake is so different and stylistically, and that it does stand out against the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a good movie? Probably not, but it's definitely like fine. And I do enjoy the Friday the 13th remake. I do like that movie. I think that movie's pretty fun. But again, though, that movie's not good. I mean, none of the Friday the 13th movies are good. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
For what it was going for, I thought the remake took a darker, like more like animalistic approach to Jason, which I thought was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But all the characters are morons. They're so bad.
It's kind of it's an interesting thing that we're getting a lot of remakes based on animation and horror are the two like categories that really we get all of these awful Disney live action remakes, which is like the transition.
I'm so glad that those are like slowed down.
They're slowing down a little bit. They were making one. There's a new one coming out.
There was like two that came out like 1 year.
One came out and made my balls shrivel up, and I can't remember what that was.
Lion King?
No, it was way more
angry. That movie.
I still haven't seen it. I just have no motivation to. Yeah, the whole world did.
don't watch I mean, I think like if you have Disney Plus, I think you should just click on it and skim through it just to see the scenes and how. I don't want to get into that, but I fucking hate that movie.
Yeah, but
I hate Aladdin too. That movie sucks.
Yeah, but the point being that the reboots in that they're on thin ice for everybody. I think at this point.
Going into this, I thought the trailer was fine, you know, and like seeing the trailer, I was like, you know, I love Scream. First of all, Scream is like one of my favorite franchises, slasher franchises. I think it's one of the most consistent ones, in my opinion. And you know, because a lot of these horror franchises, like Elm Street, or well, that's not an example, but Friday the 13th for sure, they just get worse and worse and worse and worse.
Right.
Sure, there's some like ones like part 6 of Friday the 13th, for example, that you can kind of single out and be like, oh, this one's pretty fun. But other than that, like horror franchise is kind of a wasteland. Slasher franchises. But Scream, I think all of them, including this new one, spoiler, is worthy of being in the franchise. And none of them feel like that they feel out of place and that they feel that they are sitting on the original film in a way. And you know, it has a purpose, you know. And you know, going into it, I was like, all right, like let's see, you know, like I thought Halloween 2018 was fun. I thought, you know, Halloween Kills was pretty bad.
Yeah, that movie was a bummer.
I was kind of like, all right, we'll see. And the trailer didn't look all too remarkable either, because I remember when we reviewed the trailer, I think we reviewed the trailer on some thing.
Yeah, we mentioned
it. We talked about how it just looked generic, and it didn't look like it had the Scream. It didn't look like Scream, you know, which is the irreverence, the humor, the fun. You know,
the trailer. The trailer looked more it looked more like the strategy that they took for the Halloween releases and stuff. It seemed like more of like a old school horror, like but with modern technology. So it's even more scary for the current youths.
And you know, after seeing the movie, I understand that it's hard to market this movie. I mean, you have to like, you know, I mean, you probably could have included some more jokes in it and shit, but like, you know, because of the nature of the Scream movies, even if you watch like the trailer for Scream 4, it kind of has this vibe to it where it's a horror movie, but in reality, it's like it's a fun, it's a goofy movie. Like Scream movies are goofy, and they're goofy, fun slasher films with like this cool mystery. The good ones, a really cool mystery that works, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't even know. Like I was so kind of disinterested in this movie. I was gonna see it, you know, the big screen. So I like all of them, you know. So I was like, to some extent, variants and degrees of liking. But I do enjoy all of them, and like I just didn't look who directed this movie. I didn't even know who was like involved in this film. And the filmmakers behind this, I think it's two guys, two or three guys or something. I think it's like a lot of directors. Like multiple. And they made a film called Ready or Not that came out a couple years ago, which I thought was fucking awesome. That movie is so much fun. And, after seeing that, I had a little bit more hope. I was like, oh, okay. Because Ready or Not has this, actually very similar to Scream, has this tongue-in-cheek tone to it. So I thought, like, oh, that's actually a really good choice to direct the Scream movie. And after seeing it, I had a lot of fun with this movie. And I thought that this, honestly, I haven't watched Scream 3 or Scream 4 in a while, but I think this might be my favorite Scream sequel, um, other than the first one. I think that this one was pretty smart, and I
So
think like
you would rank this as Scream 1 and then this movie?
and then Scream 5, and then probably Scream 2, and then
Okay.
4, and then 3 probably.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I thought that I had a lot of fun. This was like everything that I wanted, honestly, out of the Scream movie in 2022. That's important to say. In 2022, in
Yeah.
the time that we're living in, I couldn't really see a better script wise, couldn't really see a better Scream movie written. Really, there are problems that I have with this movie. It's not perfect. It's not the first one,
Yeah.
but I think that for what they did and what they had and what the limitations of being a requel and commentating on modern horror and tributing Wes Craven and his earlier films, it just warmed my heart as a Scream fan. And it seems like a lot of people are really enjoying this movie, and Scream fans and horror fans. It's being really well received. And that just makes me really happy because they put the work in and they made a movie that is in the spirit of Scream, without Wes Craven. And I think that Wes Craven would really enjoy this movie if he was around and see this. And I think he really would have appreciated this because it really, to me, really felt like a Scream movie, and
Yeah.
it meant to exist. And that's all I can really ask for, in this world of we're gonna remake everything,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What
I
did
went
you
in
think?
I went into this with basically no interest as well.
Yeah,
I was planning on probably watching it because we were planning probably to do something like
and I
this,
also
which we are
love
doing
horror
right now.
movies. I
Right.
love slasher movies and shit. So like, I was gonna go see it.
Right. You don't
Yeah,
it's a novel experience to see a
yeah.
slasher movie in 2022 as
And
well.
in theaters.
Um
This was so fun to see in theaters, with a packed house. I saw this opening
oh, that's
night.
fun.
Dude, it was like seeing a horror movie in theaters again.
Yeah.
The vibe was just so great. Everybody there obviously loved Scream, so it was like a really cool vibe, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I when I went to see it, when I saw it, I thought that it was a really well done remake.
Yeah.
And oh my god, there's so many worse remakes than this. Like Halloween
Oh
Kills was
yeah.
the first thing that came to mind. Like that movie actually just sucks. That movie's just bad.
Sure, yeah.
But
I enjoyed parts of it, but it's not good. I
well,
acknowledge that it is a bad movie.
like Michael killing people, that's
Yeah,
cool. Like, yeah, it's always
right.
cool to watch Michael killing
But
people, but it's
good
hardly a
God, the
movie.
story
Yeah,
is
it's an
trash.
atrocious.
Oh,
And I think
oh,
I didn't really Scream 5 didn't really do much for me. I didn't dislike it. I thought it was totally bearable to
yeah,
watch, but it kind of felt like it kind of felt like nothing to me to the end
sure,
degree. It did, like I said, it made me laugh, and
yeah,
I thought it was pretty fun to watch, but for me, I'm not really a fan of the Scream franchises. I'm just
yeah.
obsessed with the first Scream. To me,
Hmm.
that movie is
I think
one of the
that's important to
bravest.
say.
Yeah, but it isn't. I agree, because this first Scream to me is a genius slasher film, and is probably the slasher film, in my opinion, that has held up the most out of all of the classic slashers. And it just keeps getting better to me. I just watched it. The best thing about Scream 5 to me is that it reminded me of Scream, and I watched Scream, and I appreciated Scream 5 for getting me to watch Scream again.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but that's what's interesting. What you just said is like, out of all of the remakes and requel, I think Scream was like primed to remake or reboot because of the world that we live in and the influence that the first Scream had. And this movie acknowledges that. This movie celebrates Scream as a franchise and as a film. And this film, like, also, in my opinion, like, does, you know, yes, it's not as good as the original because it is basically a remake. It's a remake, but in this meta kind of way of linking to that it is a requel, it's a reboot sequel kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which would annoy me if it was another film, but this is Scream. This is what this is. Like, this is what, if it wasn't this, I would be pissed. You know, like, if it wasn't this funny take on the reboot sequel and the commentary on elevated horror versus, you know, slasher horror and stuff like that, I would be mad. So, like, I think this honestly did not piss me off because it was just like, I think that this was like, I'm glad that they made this, honestly, because it was just like, this is a good franchise to reboot, you know? Sometimes you're like Halloween, for example, like, I love that first one, but why reboot this? Like, what's the reasoning for this? But this, like, felt like there's so much that happened in horror, you know, since the original film came out, that there's so much to commentate on, and there's so much to, you know, poke fun at. And I thought that, like, that was pretty refreshing, and in this world of like these requel kind of things, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that was, and I think that was a lot of, there's a lot of the strongest, most clever moments in the script was how they sort of played with those ideas,
totally.
and presented that and came up with some really clever jokes.
Yeah.
The thing about it that I disliked at the end is I really felt like it wasn't a very additive to what the formula was. It was just sort of taking what it was just the formula that we've already seen in the first Scream, which did it so well, and just did it with a couple of modern twists, which was just,
and yes, they acknowledge that in this movie that they are doing that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like it would have been nice to see something different, you know.
I thought what they, because they were so self-referential, I thought that they were going to do that and then do something else eventually, but they just ended up just doing that and being like, well, I'm happy you're self-referential because that makes me a little less mad.
So,
but like, why did you make the movie then?
my biggest criticism, it's weird, like the biggest praise in this movie is how smart it actually, like, the jokes are, and not just the jokes, but the callbacks visually to the original, and the legacy characters, which I thought was, they were handled so well, in my opinion. Like, I thought that
I liked Dewey, but Sid and
great.
Gale should not have been in the movie. They were pointless
I think
characters.
that they could have, I liked seeing them, obviously, because it's Sid and Gale, but yes, it did feel, and even don't they even make a joke? They make a joke in the movie where it's like Sid, like, just appear. They're like, "Oh, you just appeared at the perfect time," you know, and it's like they say something like that, and it's like, okay, like, I get it, but they're probably could have do what I thought was extremely good. Like, I thought the way that his character was woven within the story and him helping these new characters was a really smart idea.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of funny moments in it, and his death was shocking and awesome, you know. And they needed to kill one of them, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um Again, and that was like super sad to see. Like that, he's probably my favorite character in the whole franchise. So
Yeah,
it's
he's
like
so amazing.
it's like ah,
So funny.
um, but yes, as much as I loved Sid and Dale, seeing them in the movie, I thought they had great chemistry and they had some great, one-liners and shit.
Yeah.
It was, they, it's like the way that they were brought into the movie. It's like doing this combo. It's like, he's back. And you're like,
Yeah.
all right, well, I'll be there. I'm Sidney Prescott. I'm a fucking good. I'll be
Yeah.
there. And
What
it's like,
cracked me up,
okay, whatever. That's fine, I guess. But,
it also goes to show how
well, and
misleading a
this
trailer
also
could
kind of
be.
adds to the ending, too, because the characters, spoiler, the Craze fans kind of almost they wanted to relive the original, stab film, the original stab film. So having Sid there, like it's not completely pointless, but there probably was a better way to write Sid
Yeah.
into the movie.
Like the way that the script is written, this is my other criticism of the script. The way it's written is that everything sort of lines up when you look at it on paper and you can connect the dots and put it there.
Yeah.
But it's not fun to watch like a lot of the times, or like
I thought it was.
not
I
I'm
thought it was
talking, I mean more sort of the story, not so like
Yeah.
watching the scenes play
Well,
out, but like this. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I mean, like, that's something that, like, carries the whole franchise. I mean, all four of them are the same movie. Like, they're all the same. Like, they all introduce a group of characters, new characters. They all, each one of them, like, is the killer, and they have to figure out who within this group of friends are the killer.
Right, the
And
whodunit
yes,
formula with the
and
with the
yes,
horror
like
twist.
they've done it the fifth time, so it's like, but I don't know. I maybe I'm just a sucker, but the mystery, like, actually, like it worked for me. Like when who was revealed to be the killer, I was like, I was not expecting it. So maybe I'm just stupid, but I thought the reveal was fun, and I thought just the what I did think was actually genuinely cool. Maybe it didn't work very well execution wise, but the idea of two crazed fans who are on these message boards and that are obsessed with the Stab franchise and that are obsessed with these films and were so disappointed by Stab 8, which is a great motif throughout this movie where Stab 8 sucked, that was
Yeah.
terrible. Shit on the whole franchise. And then wanting to, create this new timeline for the new Stab film to be, that's was funny to me because as a film fan who engages in film culture on Twitter and Facebook and Reddit and things like that, this was funny as fuck to me for me because it reminded me of like when the Last Jedi came out, where
Mm-hmm.
there were
Mm-hmm.
all these people, making edits on YouTube, fan edits
Right.
of the movie
Right.
and all this shit. And like I just thought that was a fun way to take this movie in like a funny, silly way. And like a very just over the top screen way, which was just fun for me. And just the like yeah, and another thing that bummed me too, and I think we agree with me, is the the characters felt like there were better characters than others. Some characters were not so great, and then there were ones that were pretty good. Um, like of course they had to have the character who's obsessed with movies, like the Jim Kennedy character,
Mm-hmm.
Randy Leach, who's related somehow, because I guess
Yeah, he was
her
the uncle
uncle,
of the twins, I think is what
I
he
guess
was.
they just were mixed race, or I mean, uncle. That's true. Yeah, it could be that. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, but Of course, they had to be related to that, which I thought was pretty unnecessary. You didn't have to do that. They could just be people that are obsessed with movies. Okay. But of course they had to have that scene where she's, but all of them do this. That's what I'm saying. Like all four of the films have this scene where the character explains like to the group like here's what happens in these types of movies, and like I thought that was a little like I think they could have updated the characters a little bit, instead of going into the regular archetypes of these
Yeah,
teenagers.
I agree. I
But at the
agree.
same time, like I think they tried to do that, and I think with the main character who is related to Billy Loomis, which I thought was probably the weakest element of like in terms of bringing in the legacy aspect to it, because for one, the Billy Loomis uh, this is weird because I did enjoy watching this because it was so almost corny and stupid. And but when she has these visions of Billy appearing and telling her to you're a killer, you're a killer, you're a killer in your blood, and it's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, this is silly. Um, but
I
I didn't think
agree.
that worked very well. And the whole connection to Billy Loomis, I think, was completely unnecessary and didn't need to happen. And it was connected to the first movie, which was like, why the first movie? There's three other sequels in between here. Like, why are we so obsessed with Billy Loomis? Like
Yeah.
there were three other killers. Like it's like why this one?
Yeah.
So it's like that was kind of annoying.
Yeah, I think you're kind of talking about why I dislike the film. Ultimately is
Yeah.
because the things I liked about it, or the things that I thought were fun or well done, are all like the background pieces, like the
Mm-hmm.
background pieces and the details and the references and the funny referential
Sure.
jokes. But none of the characters were really that interesting or compelling to me whatsoever. I
Yeah.
didn't really like any of them. They were all functional. I didn't dislike them. They weren't awful, like an awful horror remakes. They're all like, I'm not like
Yeah.
cringing to watch this person act. They're acting well. They're saying their lines well.
Yeah.
They feel like they're in the room together and acting on a scene and an idea. But they were just like felt mostly like cardboard cutouts to me.
Well, I think because I mean you can't argue though that like the original film like has like super deep three-dimensional characters either. The thing is that they are memorable. Like
Sydney's
uh
a deep character.
oh
Sydney's a really
Sydney for
deep
sure.
character. That's all you
But
need to have a deep, like you
like
can have a
that
deep
yeah,
character
right.
and then memorable
Well they
characters.
tried to go through like the main character having this like,
But
interesting
like,
background where she was like, you know, like ran away from home and she was like living in California, like having this whole separate life outside of her hometown. And so she was kind of trying to be the main, and I think ultimately didn't reach the heights as Sydney. But I did think that the main character, I was interested in her enough to be carried throughout the rest of the
well,
movie.
that was
It,
I
it
think she
doesn't. The
was.
film doesn't have a Matthew Lillard, like as Stu, this like super memorable performance, this like
Yeah.
really crazy performance,
Well,
or Billy Loomis.
the thing that's really great, like what you just said about Scream, that's so great, is that you have Sydney, who was a really strong character, and then you have Billy Loomis,
Yes, yeah,
Billy Loomis's character, who
right,
was really characterized and really cool, and you
yeah,
got Stu as like the sideline, and then everyone
hmm
else is just sort of fun
and
to watch.
Randy, yeah,
Yeah, and all of them.
right,
But in this movie, most all of the characters were again functional, not really that interesting or
hmm
memorable to me, and the main character, her arc just
And
doesn't work.
I
It
will be
doesn't work
honest
that
though,
well.
that's a problem that um carries throughout the whole franchise. Like just that first one has amazing characters, and the rest of them, all the new characters that they introduce in the rest of the films are pretty boring.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because like this film took this route, probably like I'm conflicted about this, like because I did enjoy characters a little bit more than you. I think I did enjoy Jack McQuaid's character. I thought he was pretty funny.
Who was he?
Um, he's the guy who ultimately he's the boyfriend of the main.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
I thought
Richie.
he was pretty funny and like his kind of fish out of water thing where and ultimately like while thinking about the film and how he's acting, he's the killer the whole time, so a spoiler. But like I like his performance, but everybody else is pretty unmemorable.
Yeah.
Although it was funny seeing the girl from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in this playing a similar character.
Whoa. Oh, is that Amber?
Yeah, she's the other killer.
Oh shit. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. I think I subconsciously sort of recognized that. It's like,
yeah,
oh, I've seen her do this
she's the one
before.
that gets
Her
dog
face
food,
bashed in.
tossed in her. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Another thing I wanted to sort of address about, which is simultaneously a cool thing about this movie and a
Mm-hmm.
weak thing about this movie, which is kind of addressing the point of why, which we might have already talked about this in the discussing it being a remake or a reboot, but it has this weird quality. Well, it has this weird quality of being a reboot, a sequel, and a remake of the Scream 1, but it's like a meta remake of
Yeah.
Scream 1, which is why I think Billy Loomis is brought in again, because they're trying to
Yeah.
basically go through, like they did the
They
telephone scene
say that in the
again.
film.
Yeah, they do the telephone scene
Yeah.
again, and they do the same ending scene
Yeah.
where they bring it back to the house, which I
Right.
thought all of that was clever. I thought that was
Opening scene was
clever.
actually when it first started, I was like, I don't know about this, but ultimately I think it worked pretty well. The homage to the obviously the opening of the
Yeah,
original Scream.
but again, it kind of brings me back to my same problem that I had with it, which was just like,
Why
this
do
is
it?
fun. This is
Yeah.
fun to maybe like have this idea, but like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't do anything else. It's just like,
Yeah.
why
Why
don't
do
I
it?
just
Yeah.
watch
Right.
Scream? Because
Yeah.
it's so much better just to
Mm-hmm.
watch Scream.
And that's definitely I kind of accepted that. I totally see where you're coming from, but I think like what I that was something that I was expecting going into this. Like
Yeah.
I knew because of I mean the original Halloween, the 2018 Halloween did that. It was something that fucking The Force Awakens did that.
Right.
Basically remade Star Wars. That's what The Force Awakens is. That was like the biggest criticism of that movie was it's a remake of Star Wars. you
Right.
know,
Right.
and yes, that is I get it. But I guess I was just expecting that, so it was kind of like I was a little like, what? Okay, why do we have to go back to the original house? I mean, it's
Yeah.
cool that we're here, but also it's like, why? I mean, what do we get? Like, it kind of makes something new. Because the disappointing thing for me was that I thought that like it ultimately was like I liked the characters and I liked the new stuff, that they were bringing in. So I was like, oh
Yeah.
shit, like, like maybe and the old stuff, some of it really worked, but some of it was like just felt like we needed to do this. And yeah, that's disappointing because
Yeah.
it would have been cool to see like a new like we don't have to do these beats. But at the same time, like they knew what they were making. Like, like they're referencing it in the movie. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I think that's kind of lame. That's kind of lazy and kind
Yeah.
of like, yeah, I know that fans want to see Billy Loomis and see these legacy characters.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think they did. They could have done like things with the legacy characters that were like way more lame. So I applaud them for how they handled the legacy characters. Because they could have done some lame shit.
Yeah. They
Um,
really could.
but I thought that like I think Sydney being in this movie and being kind of like a um like a mentor figure to the new final girl almost, and
Yeah.
kind of helping him at the end of the film was cool to see. But it was like Dooley was definitely the best. But Yeah, that definitely was my biggest problem. Was just like, I like the new stuff so much that, and I thought that this film was directed pretty well, but I was just like, well, they could have done something different.
Yeah.
They could have done
I
something
mean,
different.
I don't mind the telephone scene at the beginning because I thought that was
I
actually
feel
a
like we kind of
strong
had to do
scene.
that,
Yeah.
like we kind of had to do that.
And I think it was fine. It was a good way to
Which
introduce. We got in this character.
all the films have this that kind of opening.
Yeah.
Not with
Which
the film,
honestly,
but
honestly, I feel like what they should have done with this movie is I think they changed the direction from the beginning. Follow up where you start with Scream, but instead of the first girl dying, you follow her, so you follow that sister and she's the main character. It's like, why cut to Sam, who's like, she's a good character, she's a good actress, I can tell she can act, and she's like holding her own, but she's not a character. I don't have any, I just don't care anyways. But the point I wanted to bring up was the thing about kind of going through the motions of the old Scream again, is that it really destroyed the ending for me. The ending didn't work at all for me.
Sure.
I thought the reveal, I didn't predict the reveal. It wasn't like predictable for me, but it was like totally random. It was like, okay, so you just picked two characters.
That is carries throughout the whole film. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, I mean, the sequels, that's what it is. Like all the sequels, the first one is the only one that really makes sense. Like the rest of them are, to me, that was another thing that I was expecting. Like I was expecting this is what Scream is.
Well, this is I think this is a good perspective then, because then you can kind of come at this from like as a Scream like series fan, and I can kind of come at as like a Spawn fan, because like as soon as we sort of lose those aspect of what really is what's good about Scream, it's like you could have this cool whodunit formula and all this other stuff like the two killers thing, but sort of like redoing all of that misses the point of why Scream was good, because it was a well-written movie, because it was a geniusly well-made movie that had this cool archetype around it where it blended horror and whodunit. And then like I just kind of
for me, it's just like the first one. It's hard for me to just compare this to the first one because there's 3 other movies like in between this that Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson made. It's not like different filmmakers came in and made different movies. They're all made by the same people, and so like I have to like look at it as a franchise rather than just comparing it to the first one.
I think that's totally fair. I'm mostly
Scream 5,
Yeah.
And I have to, and they have to please. And this is also weird too because they have to please. And this is the problem with I think requels in general. I love that this movie gave me a word for that.
Yeah,
requels.
That was a good terminology.
But like this is a problem with them in general. Is that the first Scream came out? When did it come out? 1996.
96. Yeah, 96.
And this is 2022. And the idea that you have to reintroduce this franchise to people. And this is the problem with The Force Awakens ultimately had, which I really like that movie a lot, but like what most people had problems with that was they had to reintroduce Star Wars to people. So what do? They remake the first one. They basically do the first one's formula. And that's what they do here. Is that I'm pretty sure they say, like I said, they say that in the movie where they're like they recycle the old plot from the from the first film, or they and that's what they do here. And like I think that's just a problem with prequels in general, is that I think it's just I think you'd be better off, and I understand being self-referential and meta, and like I ultimately like don't knock this movie for saying those things and like doing it, because that is a thing that is happening. And that's what kind of Scream is. It's commentating on, it's a fun commentary, ultimately what it became. The first one was like, you know, subtly referencing these things, and it wasn't. But as the films progressed, it was like this is what this is. It's a parody on horror films, and the more it went, the more self-referential and more humor based it became.
Yeah.
And I get it, but at the same time, like I think you know, written a better movie if you diverted from that, and tried
Yeah.
to do something different. Taking the requel and like you obviously have an understanding of what's wrong with the requel.
Yeah.
You say it in the movie, and so and you don't do that.
Yeah, but they ended up just doing a requel.
Which I thought that like I ultimately thought that the ending like was fun and worked because I did like I said I did like the twist that it were crazed fans and they just were like I
Yeah.
just thought that was a fun element.
Yeah, I just like, for me, after a while, I just started feeling kind of fatigued with it because there was only so much of
That's
it
fair.
that like I can enjoy the superficial stuff to a degree, but
Yeah.
like I just get my enjoyment of movies from other places. Like
Yeah.
that just like I only have a small like portion of interest in some and stuff
Yeah.
kind of like that. And one of the other thing that sort of fatigued me about watching this movie was how it really did a lot more telling than it did with showing. For
Yeah.
example, with which again, I know that's something that there's a lot of exposition and shit like
Yeah.
this, especially like a Scream film. I get
Oh
that.
yeah.
But like, for example, the Sam's character, their strongest
Mm-hmm.
scene, what her, like the core of her emotional
Yeah. She explains
character,
her whole her whole
yeah,
backstory.
it's
Yeah.
just like a monologue that she gives to her
Yeah.
sister, right? And
Right.
it's just like, why don't you just do a scene with that?
Mm-hmm.
You could have opened the movie with that scene,
Mm-hmm.
give us
Yeah.
something to look at instead
Right.
of like a boring hospital room
Yeah.
with like it's like there's no story there. Like, you're
Yeah.
telling me stuff that's kind of interesting, and I kind of felt that way about the ending ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, okay, I get why you're doing this. What you're explaining to me makes sense. I see your motivations. I can connect the dots.
Yeah.
But like, it just feels like you're telling me stuff. It's like
Yeah.
I just feel like
Oh yeah.
I
I
could,
mean, but wasn't that the first one though, bro? Like,
no, not at
what are you
all.
talking about? The
Like, because
ending?
Billy
The whole
Billy
ending, they're
Loomis,
exploding what they're doing.
but they're explaining like what has been building up the whole movie. It's so
Yeah, it's the
satisfying to get
same
that up.
thing.
I don't think, in my opinion, Richie was fun, but like, if you watch how Billy Loomis sort of grows in that film,
No,
where
he's
you
a
have
better
that,
character. I'm just saying it's the same idea. Like it's not like
it's the same idea to have it where you have a movie and then you have the explanation dump at the end, but it's a
yeah.
different thing in Scream where you have the build up to the
Well, they also do that
satisfying
in every
explanation
single
dump.
film as well.
Yeah.
They have in every film they have the ending where the killer explains,
Right.
what he's doing
Right. Which
and how
again,
he
it's
did it.
like, I'm not bothered by the formula of it.
Yeah.
I'm bothered by the execution of the
Hmm.
formula,
Yeah.
because the way that the explanation dump, which is warranted for a film like this, the
Yeah.
way they execute it was completely unsatisfying and uninteresting. I like fell asleep once the killer was revealed. It's like, now I
Yeah.
know that was what was kind of holding me to the screen. They're going to fight him. He's going to die. I hope they add something else besides doing that, because
Yeah.
that would be cool to have at the end. But they didn't, which is fine. Again, they
Yeah.
went through the motions. They made the film. It was adequately made.
Hmm.
So it's like I can't be too mad at it because I didn't expect anything else from it.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't really do much for me at the end of
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a bit like this will need to just come down to I like Scream more than you like just the
Yeah.
franchise because
Yeah.
all what you're saying is like totally fair, but this is what this is, and I enjoy just the silliness of it. I don't really take these films seriously. The only one that I take seriously is the first one,
Yeah.
and the other ones I just think that the vibe of them is fun, and I just had a good time watching this. And that's all I can really say about this is that it's not the best made movie I've ever seen, and
Yeah.
it's definitely not the first one. The first one came out almost 30 years ago. Actually, yeah, it came out 35 or oh my god, wow,
Uh it's our age plus
30 years,
well 25, well
25 years,
1996. I was born in 98. I'm 23. 96 was 2 years
25
before
years.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
25.
Oh, this came out the 25th anniversary. But I mean, yeah, but the point is that there's there's three sequels in between here that were so, not the first one. A lot of people, they went, like, almost went down in quality. And this one was just a jump for me because it was just, they actually took it more, like, the vibe was better. The vibe was more fun, and it had more of a fun tone to it. And I did genuinely laugh at a lot of moments in this movie, especially jokes about elevated horror and about, because to me, like, watching that was like funny because I was like, I'm glad that they addressed that because horror has changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that this opening scene. I kind of was in when the opening scene, she's like, their question, what's your favorite scary movie? And she's like, oh, the Babadook, and she talks about, this the elevated horror and hereditary and all these things. And that's where horror movies are going now. They're not these like a Scream movie wouldn't be somebody's favorite movie, growing up. Like you and I would say that our probably favorite horror movie in the last few years is Hereditary. And I thought that was an interesting way to address that. And I love that the last line that she says is, "Our favorite movie is still the Babadook." It just made me laugh. Um, and yeah, I mean, I get all you're saying. I understand. I think I just enjoyed the vibe more, and I kind of was accepting that this, because I wasn't expecting this to be to the level of the first
Yeah.
Scream, or even like the, it will never like the, I don't know, because it's a requel. I knew that it wasn't. It's just the nature of them. They're not going to be as good as the original, or
Yeah.
even eclipse it.
Yeah.
So I think I just accepted that, like, just going with the fun guy, the formula. Ghostface is gonna pick off all these kids, and just seeing how they do it, and seeing the reveal of the villain at the end was like fun for me, just because of that character element that I just thought was unique. Does it all tie together? Definitely not. Scream,
Yeah.
Scream, better than Scream 2. Tell you that. Scream 2, the reveal of the killer is fucking terrible.
Yeah.
It makes zero sense. And Scream 3 is the worst. Out of that one, I don't even understand how they came up with the killer. I think he was. I don't know what Kevin Williams was doing when he wrote the ending of that movie. I don't know. I think he was just like I think he took a wheel with all the characters and spun the wheel and then said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, that one."
That
And
one.
I mean, so I think that this one is better than those two. Well, I got Scream 4, but those two for sure. So that being said, like, yeah, it doesn't all tie together, but at least there was something for me to grab onto a little bit, at the end
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah,
So,
I think you're 100% right about that, because it's all about like what you want from something, when you want to get
mhm.
out of something. And
And like to me, I do this too. Is like a lot of how I view horror franchises in general. Like the Scream movies, it's like all the other ones. Like the Scream is a great movie, Nightmare on Elm Street is a great movie, and Child's Play is a great movie. But the sequels are they're like they're just lesser versions of the first one. That's
yeah.
all that they are. But I still enjoy them just because I like the genre of movie that it is. Like I like the whodunit slasher meta thing that Scream is. And I just enjoy the vibe of it, and it just feels like a blanket. Is it a well-made movie? Probably it's probably not. There are parts of this that we talk about that are well-made
Yeah.
and just well written, but like I think I just enjoy the vibe of this movie a lot,
I think the
and I
value
also yeah, go ahead.
the value of something like this, what I'm thinking about when you're talking about this, is that if you really go appreciate movies for the experience, especially for like a film, like experiencing a franchise like Scream that you really like, And this film being competently made is a really good extreme experience. So it's really beneficial that this is a decently made film, and it's new. So it's a new, decently made Scream experience to go through. For me, I'm just way more of a story person. It's just like there's just not much there for me if there's not a story for me to experience. And it's like with this, it's just like, okay, you're just basically asking me to remember Scream 1's story and then go through this novel situation. But it's just like, remember Scream 1's story, because that's a good one. We're just doing some new stuff around that. It's just like, well, I would, me personally, and how I enjoy movies and like franchises and film experience and stuff, I would just rather watch the story. But I think you're making a great point, because it's like, sometimes you don't want to watch, you like Scream, you really like that movie, you really like that story, but you want to see something new that's like that, and then you can watch this movie, and it's not bad.
I like actually, like, and I also think, like, I don't watch, like what you're saying too is like, I don't watch the Scream movies for the story. Like, that's not what I'm here for. That's not what I'm watching this for. I'm watching it for the vibe and the fun tone that these movies give me, and characters. You know, Sidney Prescott and Dan Arquette. And, you know, they're great. I love those three characters. Those are like some of my three favorite horror characters ever. Like the trio. They're fucking awesome. And so I just enjoy watching the story, the vibe of the film. Like, it's the same with the Chucky movies. Child's Play 3 is terrible. It was a garbage story. It's so bad. But it's I still like enjoy watching it just because it's just the kind of person I am. I like just seeing Chucky kill people in a military school setting. It's like fucking fun, survive. It's just one of those for me. And I just thought that this like captured what a Scream movie is, and like really like had fun with it, and like, because this easily could have been like, they could have rebooted this into a serious, you know, slasher movie if they really wanted to, and a serious movie, but they didn't, because that would have been stupid.
That's what I thought this was going to be. So I really do appreciate that they didn't do that. I'm glad you brought that up, because I really thought that's what it was going to be.
I also was really, something that I genuinely think that is better about this film are the kills. Scream is not really known for the kills, but in this movie there were actually like some brutal. This is probably the most brutal Scream movie. I think there are some kills in this that were brutal and pretty intense. I love the kill with the 13 Reasons Why kid, where he's in the shower, and that whole, you know, that scene I thought was really cool when he calls his mom and she has to fucking drive like barreling through this town to get to her kid who's in the shower, and ultimately he dies, and he sticks that knife like through his cheek, and it's like this slow, you know, um like, it's brutal. It's fun. And then the beginning when he breaks her leg. You know, the Scream is not known for like things like that. So that was kind of shocking to see too. And I thought that
I don't know. The first Scream has some pretty brutal kills in it. I thought the telephone scene, he tortures her. Yeah, the first one has brutal kills. I can't speak on the other ones. I haven't seen them enough.
The first one, well, the first kill, the first one is the only one I can think of.
Well, then you also have her head getting crunched in the door.
Right.
That's pretty fucking brutal.
That's the best kill, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that one. But yeah.
There's not many kills in the Scream one. It's mostly psychological and whodunit stuff.
All of them have the kills are just like, minus that I just remember there's a crazy, stupid one in Scream 3. I don't want to spoil it, but it's so silly. But most of them are just, stabbed in the chest. That's it.
Yeah.
And this one at least had some like more creativity than just, I ran and stabbed you in the chest.
Yeah. That's
And the whole
that's an
shootout,
important
the whole
quality.
scene with Dewey and stuff, I thought was pretty cool. All these suits and he has a bulletproof vest. Of course, Ghostface had a bulletproof vest.
Right.
He's never dead. He goes to shoot him dead, and he's like, they never die, And, of course, he didn't die. Doing a shot, which was
I was
fun, but
yeah.
it was fun.
I was both simultaneously excited and then disappointed during the hospital scene, which I thought was a good scene. I think it's one of the stronger scenes in the movie, but I thought they were going to do a scene that was like a chase scene where she was in a wheelchair in a dark hospital and Ghostface was like going to like she was going to have to figure out how to navigate through this hospital and not get caught by Ghostface. And that it really didn't turn into that. So
silly, though.
I thought that would, if they could figure the thing that excited me about that is that that's the thing that I was excited about was it's just like, oh my God, are you going to try to do this scene? Because that's a really cool idea to try to make work. But they didn't, and it's okay that they didn't. I understand why they didn't, but what they did instead was fine.
But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this, and like I genuinely want to see it again, and like I think maybe if I see it again, I'll just like be like, oh, maybe it's not as good as I remember. But I had like tons of fun with this, and like it did. I might be just stupid, but I did genuinely was like surprised by the twist and thought it was cool, and like just yes, I did. I was annoyed by the callbacks to the original. I think they could have done that better, and or just omitted them. But ultimately, I think like this was a good attempt at rebooting a franchise. I don't know if they're going to make another one. It seems like that they're not. I mean, it made money. I would hope that they. I mean, they could. This is one of those franchises that you could just keep making.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Like, you can just stop here. Just go. Just, because I don't want it to like kind of. For me, I don't want it to get really bad. Like, for me, this was like a good, like, oh, okay, cool. This is like a cool screen in the 2020s, Like, this was like a cool reboot of this franchise that I never would have thought I'd say, because I don't love reboots. But if they keep going with this, it's going to get stale. It's going to get real fast.
Right. How about we take all of these directors who are making these remakes and just let them make a movie. Just make a different one. Just make a slasher. You can make it.
Well, to me, like these filmmakers obviously wanted to make. I mean, if you've seen Ready or Not, they're clearly super inspired by Scream. Mm-hmm. So like I thought that like them like for me, like if the requel thing wasn't, or like if that wasn't a thing, I feel like they would have tried to make this movie anyway. That's how I kind of felt about it. Where it was like it felt like a passion thing that they were like, we're gonna try to make a Scream movie that Wes Craven would be like happy with,
Yeah.
And of course the studio obviously like they're gonna make this no matter what, if these filmmakers said no and things like that. But like I'm glad that it at least had, because it could have been so bad, dude. It could have been way worse.
I mean, we've seen it happen in a way worse variety than this. Yeah.
So many fucking times.
And it will happen many more times after this.
This movie's making a lot of money too, so probably gonna be Scream 6.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd watch Scream 6. I probably won't.
I don't think
if it happens.
I don't know, because the problem with Scream 6 is like what are you gonna commentate on?
Yeah.
Requels, sequels.
See, this is the thing. This is the thing that's so weird to me. It's just like you run out of material if you just do the
Well,
formula over again.
to
If you
be
just
fair though, by Scream 4, I was like, there's not a lot more you can commentate on right now.
yeah.
This one definitely updated it and made it fresh in that way and what it was commentating on, at least.
Yeah.
The other sequels were just like commentating on horror sequels. That was it. It wasn't, and the third one being, um, I like it because it's corniness, but being a super corny movie about like the filmmaking process, like the movie's set in Hollywood on the set of Stab 4
Yeah.
or something. Um, and like you could do something like that, but it's already done. I don't know what the idea like. There's no. I don't think we're out of ideas. I think I don't think there's anything more you could really commentate on. You know, to make it feel like a Scream movie because you have to have that. Like if you don't, you're just gonna make a regular slasher movie, who done it slasher movie.
Yeah. Yeah, you mean without you just the needed like meta
You
commentary on
have
like
to. That's what
horror
Scream is.
tropes.
That's what it is. I mean,
Yeah. That's why I don't like franchises like this, because I
yeah,
don't like movies having to have rules to make them the thing that they
right,
are. Like
right.
just make a
I mean,
story.
I enjoy genre, and I think
Yeah,
like
that's a
I
little different, but I see your connection.
I mean it's still the same thing. I mean, if you make like for example, if you make a who done it movie, there are things that you have to have in a who done it movie. Um, and it's about subverting. It's about like making a good movie in that genre, and it's about
Well, I think
finding something that fits that genre.
I think there's a way that you can. I think this is the sort of trap of genre too. This is kind of an interesting conversation to kind of close this up,
Oh, it's a total
because
crap. I don't really say.
like the idea of like, I feel like the idea of needing to hit all the points of it, of like a genre type, will end up making it something that looks like the genre, but it might not really be a movie that's actually any good at all, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times what's like better to do is to make a movie like a whodunit movie, and it might leave out like something, I don't know, like something like Knives Out kind of
Mm-hmm.
is a whodunit story, but it's like it's adding new things, it's blending the line, it doesn't have certain things, and
Yeah.
adds other
No,
new
that's what
things
I'm
in it.
saying.
Yeah.
That's an amazing example of that. Because it's
Yeah.
like that movie is a who done it to a T.
Yeah.
Literally like it hits all of the points that you expect it to, but it writes a really great story within that genre. And
Right.
like that's super cool to me. Like if you make because there's so many genre films that like when you if you were to work in um there there's so many different genres and like movies and different types of movies. So like horror especially like when I see a werewolf movie, you're expecting certain things and obviously, but you are um waiting for it to subvert those expectations. You're waiting for those filmmakers to come in and like a Ryan Johnson to write a whodunit in a way that's fresh, that feels fresh.
Yeah.
And that's like insanely hard to do, especially when
Yeah.
you're working in genre. And Scream is, I mean, it invented that genre. Like we're saying that, I mean, Scream was Wes Craven in general, invented this um, genre of meta horror, basically, where he's commentating. He didn't invent it with Scream or remind people. He invented it with New Nightmare, which came out years before Scream, and is a meta take on the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And that's just subgenre of horror. There's movies in that subgenre that are inspired by Scream, or
Yeah.
when they're not, that are meta takes on the genre. And
Yeah.
so for me, like I can't really say like that is Scream is like the godfather of it. So I can't be like and I think it does feel a little stale because not just in meta horror, but there's so many meta movies in general. I mean, there's that's kind of a craze now to like reference the
Yeah.
self-reference in your movie and stuff. It doesn't feel as fresh in this new movie than it would have in like 1996.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, and it's kind of funny because rewatching Scream, the original one, like watching that, it almost feels like that's, to me, that's not even the innovative thing about it anymore. It's just like,
it doesn't really do it like that. But for me, like I keep saying, like the sequels, I mean, are that. The second one leaned more into
right.
it. The third one went so far that it was poorly and bad. And the fourth one took it back a little bit, but still had that,
Yeah.
So that's what people grabbed onto. And which makes sense because at the end of the day, Scream is just this really well written whodunit slasher movie. And but what made it unique was the meta aspect, right? Was the because at the end of the day, it was a basic. I mean, that's the whole thing of the movie, that it's a basic high school slasher movie with these really well written characters, but uh, making fun of the genre, that it's
Yeah.
in. So,
Yeah.
of
It kind of
course, that's what defined the franchise going forward.
And I think the meta stuff makes it it's an especially difficult topic to contain because it's one of those things that is sort of a fun flavor to throw into the mix of a film. But it so easily can degrade into just like self masturbation or just like nonsense and really hard to watch type of stuff. And you really have to walk. The other a director that I think is really excellent at some meta stuff is Paul Verhoeven, who did like, and I'm thinking of Starship Trooper, which is very much kind of that self-referential and then like meta, like breaking type of thing. That's really hard to do in a way that's not kind of like agitating to watch.
Oh,
So like
it's really fucking hard because you have to like something like Ferris Bueller's Day Off is like brilliant because I think always those simple movies like that. I think people don't realize how impressive a movie like Ferris Bueller like is because it has this character. You have a character in the center of it that is referencing the movie and is almost like knows that he's in the movie and he knows that and you still make it work and you're with the character and you're with the story that is unfolding. That's pretty impressive. And I think like the Deadpool films, for example, like do a really good job of that, where it's like, which is a modern example of like taking, the meta of the superhero genre, making fun of the superhero genre, but also making like a pretty fun superhero movie at the same time. Um, that's difficult. It's difficult to write and definitely hard to execute, like for sure, because you can easily just fall into like, "Hey guys, welcome to the movie," like
right.
like
Right.
take people out of the movie,
Yeah. And then once, if you get good enough at it, then you're at a Charlie Kaufman level and you can write adaptation.
Yeah, who's like,
you have to ascend to be able to do
Quest,
that.
another one that's like a really good film.
That's another fun one.
Yeah, that's like a total meta take on like Comic-Con culture and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's a fun thing to do because it's especially interesting in I mean, in all mediums. I feel like it works particularly well in these visual storytelling mediums, like in comics or films, because of the experience of the character literally being there on screen.
Yeah, exactly.
So the ability,
you can't really do it with like a novel.
Because it's weird, because when the character's like on screen talking about it and like refers to themselves as like a character, like that's not the actor saying that anymore. That's a recording of the actor. So it is that character, but it's also the actor who knows that it's that character. So even though like a lot of this meta stuff can feel kind of stupid or dumb or really weird, it's also like strangely authentic to the film format. But so it's
but we're also in this weird world too, where I mean, we just had the Spider-Man movie come out, which is kind of a meta movie, like in terms of like,
it is.
because it's referencing these films that exist in the world, like, and doing it in a smart way where it's like, but it is odd. Like it's definitely like not. I mean, screen aside, I'm not really talking about screen anymore because, like I said, like
Right.
this movie is the godfather of it. So, like the Screen 5 movie, it had to do that. It should have done it, and it did. You know, so, but um, like we're in this weird world of Marvel movies and shit, where it's almost like we're addressing, you know, that we're like even a lot of Marvel movies they address that it is a movie almost that there's things that it just doesn't feel like sometimes it just doesn't feel like a film. It feels like an event. And those are like, you know, things that I've been like grappling with, you know, the more and more I watch films and kind of really grab onto what I like, you know, in
Yeah.
cinema. And like I do like those Marvel movies. I mean, you guys listen, I love that Spider-Man movie. I thought it was excellent, you know.
Yeah.
But it's odd. And like I've always, you know, sometimes on Twitter it comes up, you know, remember Martin Scorsese was like, Marvel films aren't cinema. Remember that? And
Yeah.
everybody was like, I remember in college. Oh God. I don't think I've ever had to bite my tongue so hard in college before. Because when he said that, I was yeah, like, yeah, of course Martin Scorsese would say that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And what I loved about that whole thing was it was the perfect example of like if I like people who didn't read the whole quote or didn't read the whole story of like what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Remember there were like people who made shirts that were like it was like Martin Scorsese. It was people. It got so big that people were like Marvel like fans were like making shirts that were like uh making fun of Martin Scorsese and shit for saying that. Like
Yeah.
Marvel or cinema, fucking nerds. Um, but like, but I remember in college, like when that happened, I think somebody, I don't want to say his name, but somebody in class was arguing, you know, like, of course Marvel films are cinema, blah, 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 blah. It's just like, you don't understand at all what he's saying, like
Yeah.
at all. I mean, and it was really sad because I think like what he was saying is like these things are rides. Like they're not rides are great. I love amusement parks. I mean, he even said he was like, listen, I love rides, and that's what these films are. But he comes from a time where Spartacus, a movie made by Stanley Kubrick, that was a 3 hour and 15 minute film cinematic experience, was number one at the box office. And 2001: A Space Odyssey broke the world, and it is a art film. It is a giant art film, and those are going away. Like, and more as the years go by, like these big films that are being made that are like, trying to say something and give an emotional, you know, reaction to an audience. Not saying that Marvel does, but the only emotion that we're getting out of Marvel films are like joy and like excitement. Like you're not going to go see a Marvel film and come out and be like, I got a question. I'm questioning my life right now. Like like
Yeah.
or like walk out of like I saw the devil or something. The Korean movie that I just saw, like questioning the morality of revenge. And it's like you're not gonna. That's not gonna happen. And I think he was just concerned about like the state of cinema
Yeah.
and and I think like Marvel films are just I don't even remember what I was talking about. But none of this in Marvel movies and how weird it is.
Well,
Because
I think this is a fantastic point, and I think it actually does relate to Scream, because Scream is also like, I would put it on like the ride category of things, and it's
oh
like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
that's totally fine, you
totally.
know. And it's
Absolutely.
like,
Oh, I'm not saying I I I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with this, but what I am saying is go see other movies.
right,
I want the last duels. I want I want these big, bold films to be made. Go
yeah,
see that in their alley. Go see, you know, films that are made by filmmakers,
right, right. And
rather than IP films.
I think it's weird because the point that you're making is really good, because about the misunderstanding of what Scorsese's saying
Oh, that
about
was
films
so
not being
embarrassing.
cinema, because it's like,
Oh,
it's taken too literally, because what that's taken as is to
yes.
say these things on screens aren't real movies, or like what you're
Yeah.
faking yourself if you think you're really watching the movies. It's like,
And
no, the
also the
point,
idea that like Martin Scorsese would like Marvel movies, you're nuts.
yeah.
You
Well,
don't
it's
know
also
anything.
all, the point he's trying to make is just like along the lines about like Marvel does a fraction of what the film medium can do, because
A fraction of it.
what film can do, like, yeah, film can do this where you can go on this experience and have sort of like a hedonistic fun ride, and maybe have like emotional moments like with Spider-Man or something.
That's always been since the 50s. There have been films like that. There
Always the
are.
case, but
Yeah,
you can, but film can also do stuff where it changes your mindset on the human
right,
condition. You know, you have these paradigm shifts within your internal self. You know, it's
right.
not, the point he's making is that film is not just entertainment. This is the big
Mm-hmm.
argument that people, you know, this discovery that people have had with film, where it started as this entertainment industry to make for as something to do for people to have
Right.
fun, and they realized that it could have this huge magnitudinal effect on people, and really in really deep ways. And I think it's good. It's just like, it's not, the problem is not that Marvel exists and that it should be obliterated and we should go to more of like these high art like type of movies.
Yeah.
It's just that we can't get this. It would be, it would be self-damaging to consider that this is what movies are. Like, this is the peak
Yes.
of what a movie could be. It's just
Oh
like,
my God.
this is just like a realm of what movies can do. And if like
Yeah.
that's all you how like to experience movies, it's like, in my opinion, that's a pretty shallow way and
Yeah.
limited way to just experience movies that way. It's
Yeah.
fine because it's fun, and it does add to your life because fun is really
Yeah.
healthy and it's really good for you. But it's like, there's so much like many tiers deeper, or like sideways that you can go from that and
Yeah.
experience
And
it.
I think it's just for me thinking that like the things that would like top the box office back in like the 50s and the 60s and things like that. I think there was just more of an appreciation for film as a medium back then. And probably because it was new and that it was um there wasn't so much content because we're so inundated with so much shit. I think people just want to go on a ride. They don't really, want to. Why would I see Nightmare Alley? That made me feel bad.
Yeah,
Why would I do that?
right, right.
Well, that's
It's also
fair. Fine, but I just, mm,
you know, the other thing about like something like a Marvel film is that there's no reason why a Marvel or a superhero movie couldn't go as deep and be real cinema in
there
the
are
way that
films that do
Scorsese
that. I
talks
mean,
about.
Batman looks fucking great. I'm telling you. I don't know,
Yeah,
man. The more I see from that movie, I think
I'm hyped
I
for
want to
that.
strap in for
Yeah,
that.
I'm like
Logan,
real movie hype. Yeah,
Logan made me cry.
dude, that's a perfect example. That
The
is like
Dark
a
Knight.
fucking film. That's a film.
Yeah,
That's like
The
a
Dark Knight.
cinematic film.
That's a film.
Yeah.
Um, there's tons of things. I'm not saying, yeah. I mean, those films are like they take the. It's just how I describe Logan is like Logan is just a great movie that happens to be based on a comic book
Yeah.
that happens to be based on a very popular superhero, but it's presented like the way that Logan is presented in that movie is unlike any Wolverine movie that was made up until that point. It was totally subverting, you know, who Wolverine was as a character, you know?
Yeah.
And that was the genius of that film, is that it was, well, it wasn't subverting, it was just making it more grounded and not so much like with the fantastical. I love those X-Men movies. These X-Men movies are great, but um, it was taking it a real character, like deep emotional place, you know,
Yeah.
which I still have yet to see a movie that has eclipsed that, like a superhero movie that is like made me feel like devastated, you know. I was devastated, and not just because it was the spoiler, it was the death of an amazing character that I loved since I was a kid. It was the way that it was presented, the way that it was the the film, the cinematic elements that made me emotional.
Yeah.
Because I watched it a lot, a few times, and like something like that is not gonna. The first time you see it, you might get emotional just because it's Wolverine dying, but the more you watch it, and if you still feel that way, that's the film. That's not, because you know it's gonna happen at the end, you know, and like
Yeah.
if the film still makes you feel that way, that's just fucking good filmmaking, you
Yeah.
know?
And I think, and Logan's a great example of like Scream 5 has a certain quality about it that's really strong, which is like the cleverness in some of the joke writing and
Yes,
the competency in the filmmaking.
and just the love for Scream, where
Right,
like
right.
it paid off for me,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah. But
where it was
something
like loving the franchise, you know.
but something like Logan, or why Logan works so well is like the capacity is one of the reasons is how it brings all the elements of films together to represent and tell this story of Wolverine and this version in this world. It comes together through all of like the cinematography, the
Yeah,
sound design,
yes,
the
yeah,
music, the
exactly,
performances, the
right,
writing. It's all of the pieces coming together
yeah,
to work so well to
yeah,
bring to tell that movie, which is so
yeah, and it's not like relying on,
cinematic.
yeah, and it's not relying on the audience to like know who. It's not relying on just like, oh, you guys know who Wolverine is, so you're gonna like this movie. You already know who the character is. Like, you could not know who that character is and
Yeah.
watch that movie and still get a lot out of it. I believe that. You
Yeah,
know,
I
if
do too.
you
100%.
don't know who Wolverine is and haven't seen any of the X-Men movies and watch that, it still will get you. You know,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's a father-daughter story. It's a father-daughter, father protecting his daughter, and
That,
a father trying to protect his dad, basically,
yeah. Yeah.
from
Yeah.
dying. You know,
Yeah.
and
That's a
also and tearing himself apart while in the process. You know,
yeah. That would be an interesting conversation. If we could talk to Scorsese right now, I would like to ask him that question about distinguishing between like, do you just think this genre is not cinema, or like what
I'm
something
not
like
gonna
Logan?
go into there's a YouTube video. If you just type in like Martin Scorsese Marvel, he's asked. There's like I think there's like a 10-minute video of him explaining his
Oh,
stance
his reasoning. Yeah.
because he produced the Joker. Remember, Joker, which is I still like it. It's a pretty good movie, but with the caveat of watch After Hours, watch King of Comedy, watch Taxi Driver, okay, and then rewatch Joker, and you'll go, this movie's fine. But I mean, Scorsese is involved in that movie, you know, in some capacity. Like he's not totally against, you know, like uh, comic books. You know, he's just looking at the cinema landscape and saying things are different, and this
Yeah.
is not the way that it used to be.
Yeah. I get my question specifically is about the distinction of Logan, because I think that's a
Mhm.
really good example you brought up about like it's a it's a 100% a Marvel superhero movie,
I
but
would
it is
think that
also a cinematic story,
I mean, James
in my
Mangold is like
opinion.
a filmmaker. I mean, James Mangold
Right.
has made some great movies. Pretend You Know, Walk the Line, 44 Hours, is an excellent movie. He's a
Mhm.
great filmmaker. And so I would think that he appreciates that film because I mean, it's a movie. Like, it's a film. Like, it's
Right,
not,
right.
I don't think, there's like no green screen in that movie, I don't think.
Yeah.
Not that I remember.
I mean, most of it's just in like there's not a lot
The
of like
desert.
crazy superhero shit that happens
And
on a
when the
lot of it.
superhero shit does happen, it's super grounded and
Yeah.
like obviously in camera. It's not obviously there's a CGI or not, it's not CGI, there's the other Logan, the evil Logan.
Right.
Holy shit. But that scene is crazy. Like that first, that was like, I remember seeing the movie first time in that scene, I was like, holy shit. Like that
Yeah.
was just truly surprising and incredibly dark for a superhero movie. Um and so but like that whole scene, obviously was um pretty effects heavy, but everything else was pretty like you can tell that it was in camera. They're shooting it on the
Yeah.
day. It wasn't
Yeah.
put it in post.
Yeah. 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 I feel this is an
But I
interesting.
feel weird in this the future of cinema, and the future of the. I know we keep talking about that, but I feel just odd about it, because on one hand I'm excited, but on the other hand I'm like, are we ever gonna see? And I don't know, just like the Batman, looks awesome. It looks like a film. It's 3 hours. It's like a fucking epic.
Yeah.
So they just released a clip the other day. I couldn't help myself. I watched it. It looks, I mean, it looks awesome. It looks like a fucking movie. It just doesn't look like it was made by. It doesn't even look like it was made by Warner Brothers. It looks like it was like very grounded and super real.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they had a vision for what this Batman would be, rather than like, all right, we gotta introduce the Justice League, check. We gotta introduce Wonder Woman, check.
Yeah.
Um, it just feels like this is a Batman story that I've always wanted to tell. And here we go.
Yeah. It does. I can't. It's really hard to tell because you're so clouded within your own perspective, like from like having gone through the pandemic and then
Mm-hmm.
like be in this weird state with movies. But I agree, it really feels like we're in this weird
Or
state of a lot of like remakes and
yeah,
franchise based or based on
dude,
original
a
things.
lot. That's like all that's coming out.
Yeah.
That's like
I,
all that's coming out in theaters, more specifically in
yeah.
theaters. Yeah.
Yeah. The two movies I thought I saw, Lamb and Green Knight, were like the
I mean,
A24
A24 is
properties.
like one of the only. I mean, even them though, they're starting to. I mean, the tragedy of Macbeth, which is directed by Joel Cohen, is on Apple TV Plus. That wasn't in theaters.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
You know?
Yeah, I really feel like we're on the verge. We need like a weird
Yeah,
modern new filmmaker to come and like figure out how this new format kind of works. Because I feel like we're in this like format
yeah.
or like figuring
Or not just a
limbo or
filmmaker, like
something.
a studio head, or like a studio that is willing to like pick these. It's 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 so complicated. It's
Yeah.
like it's almost a miracle has to happen, where like a studio has to take a risk on like a Jordan Peele, for example, give them like $50 million or something, make a movie, and hope that it pops off. You
You know,
know,
one
and if
one of
that pops off, then like other studios will be like, it's the model. It's what happens. Um,
what about this? Because I think one of the things that some of the real innovative stuff, or some have had some surprising things, are through this like how Netflix has funded these
mhm.
creators to make these crazy ass films that
Yeah.
might not have gotten made otherwise. It'd be cool if that kind of turns into the way movies get made. So we start getting these really adventurous movies that get pitched on stream, and then the
Oh
ones
yeah.
that kind of make a success then move into the theater thing. So
Yeah, I
we have
mean
like
those
a
are yeah, I mean that could be a thing. I mean I like streaming. I'm not opposed to it. Um I just think like I think I'm just getting old, and I think I just older.
Oh,
Yeah. I think
24.
older.
I'm
I think
losing my batteries
I
going
think I
out.
just have to like accept that I think like the future is going to be like the movies that are going to be like nominated. Not that these are good movies, but movies
Mhm.
that are going to be nominated for Academy Awards and things like that won't be in theaters. They'll be in streaming.
Yeah.
Because think about this is crazy to me that the last Coen Brothers movie, the last Adam McKay movie, the last um Martin Scorsese movie were all released on streaming. That's unbelievable to
Yeah.
me. That's Martin Scorsese couldn't get his movie in theaters and had to
Yeah.
and resort to Netflix. That's you don't get better than that. Like you
I
don't get
know.
he is like a godfather of cinema. Like you don't like at least Spielberg got his movie in theaters. At least West Side Story was in theaters. But you bet your ass his next film won't because it bombed.
Yeah, I know. Things are totally changing. Things
This
are
is weird.
totally changing.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been changing for a really long time, and it
Yeah.
feels like I'm waiting for like just something to happen because it feels like we've
Yeah.
had like these events and these slow march like
I mean,
changes,
there's
but
we look at the release schedule. We look at no, we look, there were no movies until the Batman
yeah,
that were coming out in theaters that I want to see. I mean, Jackass 4 I would like to see, but it's not really.
that's like different than the
Yeah, that,
conversation of like cinema films or
yeah,
something
yeah. I
like
love
that.
Jackass. I love Jackass. But, I mean, that's crazy. You would think that there'd be one film in like the 2 months before the Batman, like, that I'd be excited to see,
Yeah.
that wasn't an IP or something,
I mean, it's just like such a trepidatious time because like they're already hurting from the pandemic, like
Yeah.
not releasing a movie for a year and a
It's
half,
still
any movies.
the effects are still like we're getting over it, I think. We're still in it though, for
Yeah.
sure.
We'll have to see what happens, man. We kind of went all over the place once we dissected Scream,
No,
but I think it was all relevant. It's all kind of part, that's kind of the meta nature of Scream too. It kind of
yeah.
makes you analyze
Yeah,
the
we got
context that it's in.
that yeah. We got a twist ending to this podcast.
Ha ha ha. Just like Scream, better twist than Scream.
Exactly. All right. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.
Scream
Thank you.
2022.
Wow.
uh, bye bye.
Well, bye.